Okay, I'd like to call this meeting to order. City Secretary, can you please call the roll?
Mayor Paulette Guajardo.
Present.
Councilmember Roland Barrera.
Here.
Gil Hernandez.
Here.
Michael Hunter.
Here.
Billy Lerma.
Here.
John Martinez.
Here.
Ben Molina.
Present.
Mike Pesley.
He should be.
He's attending by WebEx.
Yeah, there he is. Councilman Pusley, can you hear us?
Oh,
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Mike Pesley's present by WebEx. Greg Smith.
Here.
City Manager Peter Zanoni.
Present.
Miles Risley. Mayor and council, a quorum of the council and the required charter officers are present to conduct the meeting.
thank you, Ruth. Okay,
Okay, great.
good morning, Mr.
Yes, welcome
Zanoni.
back, everybody. Good morning. So today is our fifth of 6 scheduled workshops on the budget with the City Council, and we're going to cover just 2 items today, water and wastewater utilities, both the operating side and the capital side as well. One note to point out on the onset, and Murphy will cover it as well, is that there is no rate increase in this budget. Just as a reminder to the City Council, we do those every other year for a 2-year period. So 2022 is the year we're in right now. The rate was adjusted in 2021. And so there was an increase in 2021 that took care of 2021 and 2022. 2023, I'm sorry, there was one in 2021 and 2022 that covers 2023, right. I'm off 1 year. So 2022 in this budget covered 2023, so there is no rate adjustment in the 2023 budget.
That's a lot of
I know.
2020.
Yeah. And then the next rate increase will be 2024 for 24 and 25. Okay, so I'm sorry, I got that wrong. So in the 2022 budget, the current year, we did adjust rates, and it was for 2 years, for the current year and 2023,
Right,
the next budget that begins October 1. Then the next rate won't be until 2024, and that'll cover 2024 and
and 25.
25, right.
Okay,
Okay, so the bottom line is there's no rate adjustment in this recommended budget,
got it.
none. Now, tomorrow we have our 6th or our final workshop is tomorrow, and there are 7 things we're going to cover tomorrow. Just to let the council know that we're going to go over one more time the council budget, the council office budgets. We did cover the additional requests for constituent office help, but we didn't go over things like the car allowance and the food budget, so we're going to go over that tomorrow. We're also going to spend some time going over the city property tax rate. We have all those numbers finalized now with the truth and taxation calculation software that we got from the state and the final numbers. Tomorrow also we'll go over and recap the fee and charges adjustments that were recommended in the budget. And then we'll go over the economic development department that is also recommended in the budget. Our 5th item will be the hotel occupancy tax budget, going over that and how we'll recommend allocating those dollars. And then 2 wrap-up things after those 5 items. One will be a wrap-up on the community input, a summary of what they expressed in those 5 community meetings and what we're recommending to respond to that. And then finally, the potential adjustments and related budget amendments will be the final thing tomorrow. And then next Tuesday will be the first reading on the budget. And so we did place out the draft city council agenda already on Monday, as we do. And that will be updated this Friday as the final agenda based on the input today and again tomorrow from the council. And so the first reading on the budget will be part of the city council agenda for next Tuesday. And then the following Tuesday will be the final read and adoption of the budget on Tuesday, September 6th. So with that, Michael Murphy and his team are here to go over the water and wastewater, and we'll turn it over to them.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Peter, and good morning, everyone, Mayor and City Council. Mike Murphy, Chief Operations Officer for the City of Corpus Christi. So I want to first introduce the team that has put this budget together for this upcoming year. We've got Reba George, Assistant Director over Business Services. Wes Nebigan, who's our Assistant Director over Infrastructure. Nick Winkleman is our Engineering Manager in Water Utilities. Daniel Dang, Assistant Director over Wastewater Services. And Esteban Ramos, who is our Water Resource Manager. And so this is the team that put this budget together. If we, am I running the slide? No, I'm sorry. Okay. Next slide there, please. So first is our mission statement to provide clean and quality water and wastewater services that respect our environment and our customers, and something that our customers can depend on. Next slide. A little something about Corpus Christi water. Excuse me. So we have 4 water supply sources. We have Lake Corpus Christi, Choke Canyon Reservoir, Lake Texana, and Colorado River. We have 1 water treatment facility, which is the Owen Stevens Treatment Facility. We maintain over 2,000 miles of water lines within our city limits and some outside, and 100,000 water connections that we manage each and every day. On the wastewater side, we have 6 wastewater treatment plants that we maintain, own, operate, manage. We've got the Oso Treatment Plant, which is our largest treatment plant, Laguna Madre, Whitecap, Greenwood, Allison, and Broadway. We maintain over 1,300 miles of wastewater lines, 105 lift stations, as you can imagine, in a very flat terrain, and then 93,000 wastewater connections that we maintain on a daily basis. Our fleet consists of over 200 trucks, 75 heavy-duty trucks, 25 utility vehicles such as Kubota club car type, 50 excavators, loaders, and tractors, 15 mowers, and multiple trailers and pull-behinds, and then numerous generators in our facility. I think we need to catch up there. Thank you. This is our org chart for the upcoming year, broken out in several different categories. Our achievements for the FY22. Next slide, please. Okay, thank you. Number 1 achievement is our desalination efforts to include a swift loan, land acquisition, power, and permits. And all these things we're working on, and I think we're closer than ever on our land acquisition site. We're working very closely with Flint Hills. Just got word yesterday from the city attorney that we have finished our review of the last draft from Flint Hills. We've finished our review of that, and we're sending our comments back, I think, today. Miles is not here, but I think we're sending those back to Flint Hills today. Our drought management during this drought that we're just going through right now, and maintaining our water quality throughout this entire endeavor. Fortunately, we've been getting some nice rain showers the last few days, which has taken a little burden off of us, but we are still in a drought. Make no mistake about that. Our Holly Rand Morgan elevated storage tanks, we brought both of those back online. They were not scheduled to come online until early 23, but I think thanks to the good work of this team over here, we're able to, and also with our engineering department, we were able to use some creative ideas on purchasing, procurement, and we're able to bring both of those tanks back online. They're both online and operational, and I think the first week of September, we're going to have a ribbon cutting at the Rand Morgan tank. And also,
Hey,
a
Mike,
big,
excuse me, is
Yes,
that
sir.
when you're gonna have the Tolosa Midway Warrior application on the top of the tank?
no.
Oh. Yeah, let's not go there because Flower Bluff is
No,
listening.
no.
That's not good.
Now, we are going up with a very nice Corpus Christi water logo serving the
Yeah.
coastal bend. That's what's going up on the
Right.
You know, I'm just kidding with
Right.
you, right? Because I saw the Flower Bluff one, that's why I
That
said
was the
that.
Photoshop thing.
Yeah, just to be clear, there was some misinformation that a group posted on social media on the Flower Bluff tank. We know that council approved the contract to build a new tower. The one there is very aged on Flower Bluff. But they had the Flower Bluff, is it the Hornets?
I
Or-
think
Yeah.
it's the Hornets.
The Hornets logo, and that's not what the logo is. The logo will be CCW, Corpus
Right.
Christi Water, and that'll be the same on all of our tanks.
Yeah, be this logo
All of
right
our,
there.
yeah,
Right.
all of our elevated water storage tanks will have the same logo
Yeah.
with no mascot. Right, just to be clear, in case anybody's
Right.
watching from the
Well,
community.
yeah. And just to be clear and for the record, it was said that I had a conversation with them about that. And so we cleared that up.
Okay.
And I made some calls and said, no, I never said that. I never
Okay.
even had a conversation about that. But yes, they understood that I think what they thought was that because there was money in the budget for the logo, they just assumed it was their logo.
Yeah.
Like,
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah.
cleared that up. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, I can do it?
If you want to, yeah.
Well, I think they're doing a pretty good job.
Joe Kramer tried. I give him that.
Okay.
No,
So,
it was somebody else. That was somebody else.
this past year, we were able to replace over 114,000 linear feet of water and wastewater lines within the city. And then also, earlier in the year, we completed the Headworks project, $25 million project at the Oso Wastewater Treatment Plant. Next slide, please. Okay, our performance measures for the past year. In production, millions of gallons of potable water distributed per day, an average or per day. So for 21, it was 75 million gallons per day. For 22, 81.9 million gallons per day. Our goal for 23 is 93 million gallons per day. And I know as we're in the drought, we've been talking about our plant producing hundreds of millions of gallons a day, like 101 to 105. But you need to understand that this averages across 12 months, which 4 or 5 out of the 12 months is considered low flow months, like January, February, March. Then you got end of October, November, and December. So our production estimates are hopefully going up. Water quality, so percentage of water quality readings that met state requirements for safe drinking water. We continue to hold a perfect record on that for the last 2 years, and we have every anticipation of doing that again in 23. Service response, this is a really big issue. I mean, all of these are big issues, but this is one that I think we really do an outstanding job in compared to other cities, as a percentage of water main breaks repaired within a 24-hour period. Last year it was 82%. This year it was 93.5%, and next year we hope that number to be up around 93.5%, and next year we hope that number to be up around 95%. Water quality, the percentage of effluent water in compliance with permit. You can see the numbers here. We're at 99.1% this year. Next year we have to be at 99.2%. I told Daniel Dang, I said this is a really good number, but it's going to take us 8 more years to get to 100%. So, anyhow, we're working on that. Our average daily flow of our 6 wastewater treatment plants, just FYI, is around 28 to 29 million gallons per day. And then the other thing about that I think is important to note, that 90% of our effluent goes back into the bays and estuaries, and approximately 700,000 gallons a day goes to golf courses, the Veterans Memorial when they're taking water and things like that. So we are doing water. We do have a water reuse program. Next slide, please. All right, our proposed budget for the upcoming year, operating budget, I should say, is $223.6 million. It's a big budget. We anticipate to have close to 600 employees if this budget is approved for next year. But our wastewater budget consists of 35% of our overall budget at 78.8%. Our water budget is $144.8 million at 65%. So budget increases this year, employee-wise, is we've got 3 employees in our warehouse, environmental, solid waste. Well, these are just my notes here, but we're looking at 45 employees overall for the upcoming year. Okay. So let's break it down into the 2 utilities. We go to the next slide, please. Thank you. So, proposed budget for the Water Utility Fund, $144.8 million. This is water fund revenue of $135.6 million, and then taking $9.2 million out of fund balance to meet our budget. We have 34% goes into distribution, 24% into supply, 40% for treatment, and 2% for water quality. Okay, next slide. Our wastewater budget for the upcoming year is proposed to be $78.8 million. The wastewater fund revenue this year was $81.3 million, or we're anticipating that's what it's going to end up being. So no additions there from the reserve fund. Collection is 32%, wastewater treatment 56%, lift stations at 12% of the overall budget. And a reminder, 6 wastewater treatment plants and 105 lift stations that we're dealing with. Next slide. Okay, we've got desalination. Goals met in the desalination program over the past year. I'm sure you're all very well aware. We executed the AEP contract for the power study this year. We've negotiated the final option contract for Inner Harbor site, and like I told you earlier, the city attorney's office is completed with their review and our changes to their draft on the option contract. And Miles, I said we were sending it back either today or tomorrow back to Flint Hills.
Yeah, I went back to, I think that it'll probably be going to Flint Hills, today or tomorrow.
Okay.
We've sent our internal review.
Thank you. And then initiated the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers permit, and that's underway right now. We do have news on permits with TCEQ. We got word that on October the 5th, they're going to be reviewing it's going to, not reviewing, but it's going to be on the TCE Commissioner's agenda to vote on our intake permit for Inner Harbor site. And we're hoping that shortly to follow, there will be, the La Quinta site will follow that. So the technical review team is currently reviewing discharge permits with TCEQ as we speak. There was a very good meeting in the last few days between our technical staff and TCEQ's technical staff reviewing our discharge permits. So actually there's some motion happening on the permit side, which is really good news for us. So 23 plans, finalize the TCEQ permits. That's our number one goal. Determine the procurement method. We're going to start working on that probably within the next month and a half. We're going to start pulling together a team to come up with what is going to be the appropriate procurement method to construct the site. And then we also are going to have to go through a process with our engineering and procurement department to select an architectural and engineering firm to do the work for the design and construction of the facility. And then we are right now pursuing land acquisition. Kind of back up. We are in conversation right now with Friesen Nichols to draft us a contract to pursue the land acquisition for the La Quinta site, and we hope to have that complete in '23.
If I can, just interrupt for a second.
Yes, sir.
And just to bring to your attention, in our capital budget book, last year there was a lot of interest in this one page, but on page 321 is our project worksheet for the Seawater desalination project. And we thoroughly reviewed this more so this year than we did last year, but it does include funding in 2023 for land acquisition and planning, which would include the permits and work with Friesen Nichols. And the loan, the Texas Water Development Loan, low interest loan is booked in the 24 and 25 fiscal years. You'll see that in the revenue as well. So the total project as described in this budget, which is an estimate and a forecast, and we know we want to try to bring it below that, but it's $227 million over the life of the project. Just to bring to your attention, page 321 in our capital budget book.
Okay, Councilman Hernandez?
So this is just on desal, you're just gonna borrow money, do design build or design bid build with no other options to consider?
No, sir, the council is going to decide on what procurement method to use.
Well, you're putting it right here that that's what you're gonna do.
Let me take a look on that.
I don't think it says that. I think what I said is we're going to determine a procurement method. That's what I just said.
Well, in your in the CIP, it says you're gonna borrow the money to do that. So there's no other option that we're gonna look at.
Yeah, so Councilman, to answer your question, on page 321, it doesn't describe the procurement method because council still has to decide that as a policy body. We do have the loan for some form of construction, that the council approved the application to be submitted, approved the receipt, and then recently approved an extension to the loan. That was all done at city council. So there's no agreed upon method yet for construction, whether it's, as you mentioned, or some of the firm building it for us and operating. That has to be decided. I'm not sure what we actually put in the loan documents, but I don't think we described the procurement method in the loan documents either.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes, so
Okay.
we take it of the loan as we described.
Mhm.
That's what it's
Right, but the loan application didn't say the procurement method either. So that's a step that still has to be taken by the city council. We've talked about it, I know you've talked about it, and it's nobody's vote, there's been no council votes on procurement method.
Right.
The council's taken several votes on desalination. The most recent ones include land acquisition, feasibility, or the term sheet. The next vote will be on the acquisition, subject to permits, and so that's it. So the document here on page 321, nor Mike Murphy, we didn't say this morning what procurement method would be used. That's up to city council. Staff will make a recommendation, but we're not quite to that. We're not quite ready for that yet.
Okay.
Okay. Next slide, please. All right, another big effort that is ongoing. We are in year 2 of our 15-year consent decree program, and just wanted to give everybody an update on status of the consent decree. To date, sewer line cleaning, 292 miles. The goal for the second year goal is 276 miles, so we're 106% there. Sewer line inspection, to date, 244. The goal, 198, 123% above that expectation. Force main inspections, 138, we're right on target there. Air relief valve inspection, 305 is how many we've done to date. 243 was our goal, so we're 126% of that. And then lift station inspection, 86 was the number, 51 was our goal, so we're at 169% there. And there's just you can kind of see on the slide above is a typical manhole that before and after picture. But the established goals of the consent decree were to meet the discharge permit requirements for each of the 6 wastewater treatment plants. And so we're working very, very diligently with Daniel Dang and his team to do that and reduce the sanitary sewer overflow events and total volume. So we're working on that. Since the start of the consent decree, we have invested $93 million in capital improvement projects for wastewater and lift station improvements, $17.6 million in pipe bursting, manhole rehab replacement, closed circuit TV, and all of these were performed under our IDIQ contracts. The gravity system repairs, maintenance, cleaning, CCTV, all manhole repairs and lining were performed by CCW staff as part of our operating budget. The budget we have prepared and is being presented today will allow us to achieve these goals and the benchmarks for the short-range CIP budget, 1 to 3 years, totals of $347 million for wastewater treatment, lift station, collection system improvements. The long-range CIP budget, 4 years to 10 years, totals $465 million for wastewater treatment plants, lift stations, collection system improvements. And our wastewater operations budget we discussed earlier in the presentation, and is focused on structured needs to meet the goals that we have set for ourselves. The entire wastewater and CIP operation budget is involved and structured to meet the goals of the consent decree. Our 23 plans, complete the lift station upgrades at Williams, Woodridge, and Morgan. Initiate 3 wastewater IDIQ contracts focusing on pipe bursting, manhole rehab and replacement, associated collection system improvements. Identify and initiate design for large capacity constraint projects, and increase public education and outreach, including Clean Bays and Blueprints website.
Mike, could you advance the slide? There you go.
Sorry about that. Okay, we can go to the next one after that. My bad. All right. Water, so the 2023 enhancements for water utilities, addition of 7 positions and equipment to create 2 water construction and preventive maintenance crews. Addition of 1 person to oversee Corpus Christi or CCW warehouse, and conversion of 9 temporary positions in the utility business office to handle all utility business calls. The Sunrise Beach and Pier boat ramp, and the addition of 1 person for conservation, outreach, and marketing. I think we increased that to 2, didn't we? We moved that up to 2 since, yeah. So that's going to be a change right there. And recommend 1 additional person for conservation outreach. All right, next slide, please. Wastewater enhancements, the addition of 4 positions for wastewater treatment plant.
I'm sorry, Murphy, can you go back to 14?
Yes,
Slide
sir.
14? We went over this pretty quick, but the 7 positions in equipment is for more preventative maintenance on our water lines. Skipping down to that 3rd one, or let's see, I guess the 2nd to the last bullet, it says addition of 1 position for conservation and outreach. We mentioned we're going to double that, so it'll be 2 as part of Eddie's amendments that will show the council. We're going to recommend not 1, but 2 positions for conservation, marketing, outreach, awareness, annually, every day of the year, not just when we're in a drought situation. And as well, we have money in the budget, $70,000 to increase our awareness on conservation and outreach. So 2 more staff, more dollars for public awareness on our water conservation outreach on slide 14.
Oh, yeah, that's
Yes.
very important.
And then for the customer service, that's something that the team's focused on as well. And 9 additional positions. Part of that is because with the implementation of 311, 311 would take 2 types of calls. Somebody asking questions about their utility bill, and then something like a pothole. So we want the customer experience to be very educated, the person that's on the line. So all of REBA's call taker staff now will be dealing just with utility calls. In other words, 311 will transfer to a live person to REBA's call center, questions on water, wastewater bills. In the past, they were handled with a 311 rep, but that doesn't give Mike Murphy or the team information on how the business is going, what are some common concerns that might happen. And the best experience is from a trained professional that deals just in the business of water, wastewater. So additional staff persons to take on what will be an increased number of calls in what we call the utility business office.
Okay, but, so Peter, so this says 9 temporary positions. So those are current positions? Are they just contracted? Like, or what does that mean exactly?
We just recently added temporary positions to start getting them hired and trained now because the calls are starting to come over. So by the October 1st, we hope to be able to convert some of those and then add the additional for permanent positions.
Okay,
So we'll have 8 additional call takers and 1 additional lead or supervisor for the call takers.
okay.
That'll add to the 16 we already have.
And they're all at the building you're in?
They're over here
Or
on the
they're
first
here?
floor.
Oh, okay.
They're
got
in
it.
City Hall,
Right.
so when a customer comes in to pay a
Right.
bill, they're there because sometimes people need an in-person review of their bill. So that's actually some
They're
rooms in the back.
dedicated then.
Yes.
That's great.
But this is an important business process change that we've been working on for my 3 years there, because a lot of the business of running water is how does a customer understand it? Are they being taken
Right.
care of? And having and the 311 call takers are pretty knowledgeable about all city operations, But when somebody's calling about a detailed question about their bill, it's best that the business owners of the business, the water, wastewater, deal with it.
Right.
So they get good information quickly to the customer, but then they can also see patterns and trends and make adjustments in their business, whereas a 301 call taker won't do that because they're managing 28 different businesses. So that's a good that's a good customer care initiative. And then Murphy, and we went over 2 items that will help us in our conservation outreach and awareness of how we are here with our water in terms of drought or just conservation, even if we're not in the drought. We need to be
Okay.
more.
So Peter, that's very important. That's
Right.
$170,000. That's one position, which is, I'm going to say great, but I don't really know what that, like, how is that going to make a difference?
Right, they're going to explain it. They can explain it, but actually it's going to be 2. So the proposed budget had 1, but in our conversations with council in the last couple of weeks, we recognize that, you know what, 1's not going to do
Right.
it. So we're going to recommend 2 additional positions for marketing, outreach, awareness, and either Esteban or Murphy can explain what their duties will be.
That's
Right
great.
now, Esteban, come on up, yeah, Esteban. Right now, Esteban has 1 person, I think, in your operation that's helping him, but that same person's also the person working on alternative water sources and managing the dam. And so the stretch too thin. It's no wonder that we don't have a good awareness program, a conservation program. They don't have enough staff, but go ahead, yeah.
That's exactly right. So right now I have I have 1 individual besides myself, my engineer, that helps do our calculations, answer a whole bunch of questions from the council and others to get all the numbers together. What I want these 2 positions in the water conservation is to get out to the public, get to the schools, do more presentations. It's usually just me or Maria. 9 times out of 10, it's myself going out and educating the community. Anytime we
Yeah.
do public, this person would set out the programs and work with the contracts to help with those programs
Right.
established in
Right,
conservation.
so that's, I guess what I'm looking for, Peter, is
Right.
I want to hear someone say, we have a plan that we're going to improve. I don't even know. I've seen the plan, but you would look at the plan and go, okay, here's how we need to improve it and
Right.
make it 5 times better than what it is today.
Right.
And then these people are going to do the implementation or help. But I
They'll
mean,
help in the-
I just want this council to feel like, wow, this is going to make a difference.
Yeah.
We are truly, that thing is on a shelf. We all have it, right? You've
Yeah.
given it to us. No
Right.
one cares because we're not abiding by it. We already have the plan. So you're saying, I guess it's a question. This is going to, I mean, one person's not going to be able to do it all, and I get it. That's why we're doing the other one.
Right.
But even 2, I guess my interest is in the implementation and improvement and implementation of this plan,
Right.
because that's where it starts.
Right, so Esteban is the lead for the division, so him and Maria will guide these 2 new individuals to do just what you're saying. We don't have the new plan right now.
How are we going to, I mean, give us we have to see this, because
Yeah.
we've said this a million times since you've been here.
Right.
So, like, we can't just, we have this conversation, we move on, and get out of the drought, and we all go back to
Right.
complacent.
Yeah, it was, no, that-
How are we going to, I guess you guys come back. Why don't you come back once we hire these people, we literally have an item on the agenda that shows, we're gonna go over, or workshop, whatever. We're gonna go over the conservation plan, how we're gonna make changes to it, how this money, this investment today, or soon to be, is going to make the impact into really changing
Yeah.
the education year-round on conservation and really improving that.
right.
I just like
Yeah,
to
the
see
first
that.
quarter, so by October, November, October, November, they're gonna advertise these positions like now, so they can fill them by October.
Okay,
So by October, November, depending on the hiring pattern that we get into, we'll be able to bring a report to council to show
Great.
what the plan is for the next 9 months. Or
Right.
10 months, including
and
December.
how we're changing the plan. I would imagine we
Exactly.
may be
Yeah,
changing
well,
the
the plan
plan.
being the plan to get
Oh,
the
oh.
plan to get the community engaged
Right.
on conservation, on drought awareness.
Okay,
We shouldn't have the community say, I wasn't aware that we had drought restrictions. You
Yeah, so
know,
we've already
Our
started.
community needs to know that we're in a drought-prone area.
Right.
When it doesn't rain for 9 months, we're gonna probably go into drought restrictions.
right.
And so, but we have to help the community, educate the community on that. So it'll be the plan, the document plan, plus the communication plan, the
Right,
awareness
right.
plan.
I
They're
just
going
wanna
into the
see a
schools and
real
teaching the
plan
kids.
move
Right,
forward.
yes.
Okay,
Okay.
great.
Yeah, so right now, we've actually started the amendment to the old conservation plan before the drought got here, so our time has been spent on that, but that's really no excuse. So we're hiring the new people that we're talking about. and
Mayor,
we're
I have a
also
question.
in our public relations department.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Murphy, Councilman Hernandez.
Okay, I wish you would have done this separately with water and wastewater separately, but looking at water, and I'm assuming this conservation plan is through your water side, where are you housing these people? Because I'm looking at your PR and communications under water, and you're actually reducing your salary budget from $421,000 to $337,000. So where are these people actually going to be housed?
The two additional positions will be in the water resources
But this,
org
but
that-
this is
that
for
Steve-
communicating and our conservation
working,
plan.
working predominantly on conservation outreach. Yeah. The communications group is there are other 4 positions in that group, and they report through the strategic communications person that reports to Mike. They'll be working a
Well,
lot together,
considering
but
this
those
is
are
a
in,
communication of the water conservation, why would they not be in your public outreach group?
Well, I was just about to explain that.
Okay. well,
You beat me to it.
Okay, I'm
so-
just, like I
no,
said,
that's- no,
I'm
that's
just looking
fine.
at numbers, so I don't understand
No,
what
I-
your
Okay.
I
thought
appreciate
process
that.
is.
So what I was saying is, so these 2 new people will be definitely working under Esteban. And then we've also got positions that we're hiring in our public information marketing section, which is those positions you're talking about. And they report directly to me. So if you remember Amber Otting, who used to work here, we filled her position. That young lady is supposed to start hopefully within the next few weeks that we've got coming in. And then there's going to be 3 positions, new positions that are going to be reporting to her. I think it's 3. And then you have all met Aaron, who worked with us on our campaign to rebrand water utilities. So right now, it's just Aaron in our communications group, because we've had positions that have been vacated for various reasons, and we're trying to fill all of those right now. And so these 2 teams are going to work side by side, but it's not just water conservation for the communications piece, the critical strategic communications employees. They work on all things. One of the things that council asked us to do many months ago was a quick response team. When we were fully staffed, we were really good at that, but now it's just Aaron. It's a real challenge. So if something showed up on Facebook that was blatantly false, like the Flower Buff elevated storage tank, we jumped on that quickly. And we're still trying to do that, but right now we're working shorthanded. So we'll have those 3 positions filled. One of them, like I said, is the young lady's going to show up here in a couple of weeks. She's already accepted the job. And then the other positions are going to be filled as they're out right now on the market. So if anybody's listening to this, wants to apply in our strategic communications group, please apply for one of those jobs.
Okay, I didn't understand why that was separate, okay.
There's
well,
another reason related to how we set rates as well. The water resources group is mostly on the water supply side of our rates, and the other communication positions, since they cover a wider range of activities, their time is spread out across the different sections of the operations.
So you don't have a separate, well, I'll have to check that. I'll get back with you on that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. So wastewater enhancements, we're addition of 4 positions for the wastewater treatment plant. Addition of 4 positions for lift stations and Oh, next slide, please. Sorry, y'all. Okay. I'll start over. So addition of 4 positions for our wastewater treatment plants. Addition of 4 positions for lift stations and pretreatment operations. 8 positions for equipment for concrete restoration. An addition of 9 positions for equipment and wastewater construction and manhole crews. Addition of 3 positions for equipment 24/7 emergency response crews. Okay. Any questions on that?
Yeah, so Murphy, the focus here is more response to our systems. The wastewater treatment plants, by adding these 4 positions, Daniel will have teams assigned to each treatment plant. Right now, they kind of rotate from one plant to another because he doesn't have enough persons to have complete teams. So this will round out the teams, making sure each wastewater treatment plant has a designated team, and then they become more familiar with the plant, right? And then things like maintenance and spotting situations that need repair will be more easily done because they're more familiar with the plant. The lift stations as well, we know we have over 100 lift stations, and so additional positions to maintain them and equipment to keep them in good operation. And then the next couple deal with when we do repairs on wastewater lines, making sure we restore the concrete sidewalk, driveways, to include roadways, making sure that we have dedicated crews to get in there and repair the utility. Today, it takes some time to do that because they don't have enough staff. So you could have a completed construction site where there was a break, and it can be very temporary for many weeks. So this will give us a more rapid response in correcting infrastructure on top of the ground after a repair is made. And the response crew is similarly trying to get to these lines quicker by adding, this is in the Wes's area, right, a second team where if there's an issue, they'll have 2 teams now, Wes, or is it 3?
I'm sorry.
Okay, there'll be 4 teams.
We currently have 3 response crews that work 24/7 around the clock, so this will be adding 1 person to each one of those 3 crews.
Okay,
So,
so it'll still remain as 3, but you'll have a more robust team.
yes, sir.
Right, this operation, just like water's 24/7. So if there's a break, we don't say, we'll get it in the morning. They go out at night and take care of it.
So our goal on the, for our lift station and our wastewater treatment plants is, we've got 6 plants. What we propose to do is create 6 separate pods, each one of them, like Peter was saying, and Daniel can describe it in a little bit more detail, but 6 separate pods of employees that not only maintain their lift station, their wastewater treatment plant, but the surrounding lift stations that discharge into that treatment facility. And right now, we're really too far spread out, and there's a lot of waste time and effort. So Dan, do you want to kind of explain a little bit about what you're doing?
So right now we have 6 wastewater treatment plants and 105 lift stations. Each treatment plant base associated with several 10 or 20 lift stations to improve. So the wastewater side, the treatment plant side, the lift station side, actually our operations are very good, but our maintenance, we need to make improvement. So most improvement, the maintenance work, we need mechanicals and electricians. So we are planning to make each basin, each treatment plant with the lift stations, the mechanicals, instrumentation technicians, they can work together to repair each plant, because each basin, the flow from lift station directly to the treatment plant, their work and the equipment the work orders, features were close. They are familiar with the flow from the lift station to the treatment plant. If we to do that, we need to make each basin have like a 4 crews. For example, right now for mechanicals, I only have like 11 mechanicals. If we split to 6 basins, each basin probably at least I need 1 crew. Each crew, and I need 3 mechanicals. So I only have like 11 mechanicals. So I need 1 more mechanical, so that 12 can have like 4 crews. The same thing for the electricians. So this is why I request like 2 positions for lift station, and for lift station is 1 mechanical, 1 electrician. Another 2 is for pre-treatment program. So TCEQ asked us to do 4 more work for the pre-treatment program. So we are short of hands. So this is why we request the 2 additions for the pre-treatment. This is for 4 positions for the lift station and the pre-treatment. And also for the wastewater treatment plant, we have 2 small treatment plants, White Cap and Laguna Madre. Previously, they thought the plant is too small, so they moved some operators to other plants. So White Cap and Laguna Madre, I only have like 5 operators for each plant. But technically, each plant at least have like 7 major treatment units. Each unit at least need one operator to manage to operate. So this is why I request each plant of Water Cip and liquid module to add 2 operators. So this is why we have 4 positions for Water Cip and liquid module.
So this is also part of our Good Neighbor program because we have so many lift stations in the city where they're adjacent to businesses, they're adjacent to residential property owners, and we're obviously very spread out. So odor control is a big issue for us right now that we're trying to address with this program also. And when I first got here, I toured every lift station in Councilman Hernandez's district, and I promised him that we were going to start maintaining not only his lift stations, but the other 100 or so lift stations around the city. And so we're putting a great deal of effort into that program. So thank you, Daniel, for that. All right, now into our next slide, please. Our capital budget for water utilities for this year is $157 million. It's kind of hard, it's very small here, but out of that, water utilities support streets, that's 14 million. Water sources, 15 million. Water supply lines, 9.7 million. Water treatment is our biggest one at 55 million. And then water distribution lines, another 55 million there, so that's a little bit larger. Infrastructure improvements at Choke Canyon Dam, Wesley Seal Dam, and Mary Rose Pipeline are big items on this year's budget. Owen Stevens water treatment, the chlorine system improvements, water line extensions to Padre Island, and then over $49.3 million in water line replacements, partially funded through the American Recovery Plan Act, including Leopard Street up to River Road and Nueces Bay Boulevard. And then also we'll have the water line replacement on Water Street. Our revenue sources in the Water CIP fund, 85% come from revenue bonds, which equates to about $132.9 million. 7% from the American Rescue Plan Act, that's about $11.1 million. 6% from our SWIFT loan, and that's DSAL, $9.7 million. 1% from the Port of Corpus Christi at $2.3 million, and that's for the line going underneath the bay, or the harbor. 0.3% for just cash, $400,000. And then the USACE, $750,000 for that. Next slide. So new water projects. Obviously, in our capital budget, we do a 5-year plan, but inevitably, projects come along during the year that we need to address. And so this year, we've added nine water projects to our CIP program. We've got the Mary Rhodes condition assessment program. We're actually going to try to move that up and put that on an agenda sometime in the month of September and do a capital improvement amendment. The Baffle wall project improvements at Owen Stevens, weir improvements to basins 3 and 4, electrical substation improvements, water line extension to Padre Island, the south side transmission grid, completion of that, Water Street, water line replacement, the Sand Dollar connection line at Coral Vine, and a 16-inch water main extension under Highway 286 to Alameda. Corpus Christi water parking lot improvements at our facility there that in dire needs of improvement, and then a warehouse facility that we're converting 2 ground storage tanks at Holly Road, or a ground storage tank at Holly Road, into a storage facility. And Reba, you want to describe what that's going to do to our rate model?
We wanted to provide an example of how these new water CIP projects would impact our proposed rate should we be going forward with a rate increase. So that's what that table at the bottom of that slide shows us. If the cost to the ratepayer for these new projects. And so if we include these projects, it would impact the rate should we should we have a change in our rate by 46 cents of a $3.19 increase for the average residential customer. So we wanted to try to put that in perspective for you to see what kind of rate impact that would have, because it's a lot of money. That's $43 million in projects over 3 years. So we wanted to give you a sense of what that debt service for those projects that are going to be funded through revenue bonds would have on the rate.
So let's go through that. Let's go through this box.
Right, we need to, right, this whole page we need to spend some time on. Councilman Smith and the team here met on it. So there's actually 11 projects that are on here. The capital budget, as Murphy said, is a 3-year immediate plan, and then the 7 years of future projects. So the capital budget in this new budget is similar or the same as the one that council approved last year, with the exception of these 11 projects. So similar in terms of the projects that were in there right now today are still in there for beginning October 1, with the exception of, obviously, work is being done, so different elements of work will be done in this October. But these 11 projects Murphy and the team brought to my attention, they actually had, I think, twice as many as these. But we pushed a lot back into the 7-year plan, or we may have canceled a few. We're mindful of the rate impact that it will have to our customers, and we're also mindful that desal is our #1 priority.
Right.
And we don't want to add too much and then have a tough time financing the desal project. But these projects here are all critical, and we can go over them. If we don't do them today, we're going to do them in the future. They have to be done. They're not nice to do. The critical infrastructure that has to be done, so it's a matter of when. We're recommending we begin to address them now in this budget. The $43 million would be amortized over the 30-year life of the debt, and so it's not all paid back in the 1 year. But we do show the rate. So as I mentioned on the onset, even though I got the years wrong, 24 and 25 is the next cycle for a rate increase. And we're saying that including these 11 projects, the rate increase for the typical customer, the average homeowner, would be $3.19. The rate increase, Reba, this year and last year, what was it for the typical homeowner?
That's the one number I don't have.
Okay, she's going to get that, but it's not too far off from what we normally do.
It
And
went
then-
down, actually.
What is
That's right, it went down. I was trying to
that's
remember
right,
all
it
these
actually
rates
went
in my
down
head.
because
What numbers?
The
is it
water
talking-
rate went
Yeah,
down
that's
because
right,
of our
because of
stormwater.
large volume. Yeah. So the rate increase is $3.19 beginning in '24, not in this budget we're talking about today. And without these projects, it would be $2, and Reba will get us that number, but the difference is 46 cents. So we should go over the projects, and then Mayor will go over the rate increase. So the Mary Rhodes condition assessment, that's something that Murphy's going to bring to the council before even October 1. We had 2 breaks in the Mary Rhodes pipeline in the last month, and it was built in the 80s. We need a thorough assessment of the entire pipeline. We can't today run it at its maximum capacity because of its age. We began to do that in July, August timeframe. We began to amp up the water amount, and we had 2 failures in the system. They may not have been necessarily related to that, but we think it is, and so we need to study it, so that's $3 million. This Baffle wall improvements, this is at the Owen Wastewater Treatment Plant, and this is it's a kind of a dividing wall between the big basins that help to take out sedimentation. So we either do it this way, or you do it with chemicals that are more expensive. The weir improvements, this is only the design. The majority of the construction's in an outer year, but this is part of the Owen Treatment Plant. It's basically a kind of a waterfall that helps the water flow over. The ones we have today is aged, and I think it was built in the 80s. The electrical substation, that's a big ticket one, $8 million. But the issue on this is today Owen Stevens has one power kind of a substation with a backup generator. So if the substation is hit by lightning, or if it goes out, and if our backup generators don't work, the plant shuts down. 500,000 people don't have water. Most treatment plants have a backup station and a generation backup. We don't. We never did it. We're recommending we do it now. The water line extension to Padre Island, a $4 million project. There's 2 lines that take water to the island. One is a 54 inch, I think, and the other one,
24.
what is it?
One's a 24, and then one's a 18 inch.
18? Okay, so the biggest pipe is a 24-inch built in the 50s,
Yes.
or it's at least 50 years old.
1970.
Okay, 50 years old. The 18-inch that was put in as a cheaper way of doing a 24-inch one is not enough. It's not enough diameter to carry water to the island. So if something happens to that 50-year-old pipe, the 24-inch one, we're going to have a tough time getting water. So we need a redundant water line that's of appropriate size. The south side transmission grid, the south side of our city, if we showed a map of the water lines, it doesn't have continuous circulation, and we're relying on a main grid that over time has basically been buried under SPID. So if that thing breaks, then we're in trouble. The Water Street replacement, we went over that in the budget initiatives. This is with the goal to improve Water Street and do a lane reduction and a beautification effort. We do have to replace, we need to anyway, the wastewater lines. The Sand Dollar connection at Coral Vine, this is similar where there's no redundancy. Wes, I think, is that the issue?
Yes, sir. So from our pump station to our Coral Vine tank, we do not have a major transmission main that goes straight to the tank on the island. So what this would allow is for a dedicated line that would feed the elevated storage tank.
And this is on the island?
Yes, sir.
Right. And then the next one is a 60-inch water line on Alameda, Highway 286 to Alameda.
Yes, sir. That is part of the Harbor Bridge project. They put in a new 16-inch water line right up the road that crosses 286 towards downtown area. That new crossing we would like to connect to close to the downtown area to help give redundancy down around this area in case we ever have main breaks.
Okay. And then the last two are, if there were any that were, if you said, what can we take off? So the Corpus Christi parking lot improvements, that's at one of your yards. It's basically in bad shape. And then the final one is a warehouse. So this one is good for two reasons. One, today, all the PVC piping that we use and other big pipes is left outside in the elements. And we know that the UV rays, sunlight erodes that, and that's what we do today. The city's been doing that for decades. Most high progressive water districts put that inside a warehouse for UV protection as well as theft protection. So we don't have that, but there's a ground storage tank at Holly that has to be decommissioned, and so the cost to decommission it is more than the cost to convert it into a storage building. So the team came up with this recommendation to convert it to a storage warehouse, and then we can get those PVC pipes out of the elements. And you have a lot of those probably in your inventory, Wes?
Yes, sir, we do. We keep various sizes, various thicknesses of pipe for both water and wastewater on site at all times, especially right now when supplies are so limited.
Right,
So-
and they're just kept outside?
Yes, sir. They're
Okay.
kept outside along with all the fittings, fire hydrants, other items that we use.
Okay, so this is kind of protecting the investment that's made when you buy these. So that's kind of the overview of the 11 projects. I would admit they have some discretion to them in terms of you could move them back a year, move them in the future a year, but all of them should be done at some point in a modern water system. Some of them introduce risk. If we're willing to take risk, which we're not, the staff's not recommending that, there's risk associated with it. So just take the water line to the Padre Island. If that 50-year-old 24-inch line breaks, we're not going to be able to get
Right.
sufficient water to the island, period. And with the new development happening at the PID there,
Preserve.
the preserve, right? Especially with all those new properties coming online, we would be stretched to get good water.
Did
based
you
on
go,
18.
Peter, I'm sorry to interrupt, did you go over the parking lot improvements? I mean,
The
that's a
parking
four-
lot improvements, what's the location of that, Wes? Is that at Holly or?
Yeah, that's our Holly Road facility.
Okay.
And to say that the parking lot is in deplorable condition would be insult to deplorable condition things. It's
It's
horrible.
in bad shape or what?
So the issue is, the parking lot has just basically disintegrated, and that's where all of our equipment is stored. That's where all of our vehicles are parked. That's where all of our employees park, and it's a mess. I mean, for those of you who came out to to the budget meeting at Holly Road a couple of weeks ago, you got to experience some of that. So you want to add anything to that? I mean, so.
No, just other than that is in the back, is as bad as it is where employees park and where the public parks, it's twice as bad in the back. That's where we have all of our heavy equipment, heavy trucks, 2.5 ton, 3 ton trucks, pulling heavy equipment, excavators and that, and it just takes a toll on those. So it's in need of reconstruction.
Right.
And there is a parking lot at Owen Stevens that's included in that as well.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
That Owens, that's right, yeah.
Yeah.
We've been to Owen Stevens before, to get down to the lower level where you enter the building, it's mud. It's basically rock and mud.
Correct.
And I've been in there several times to include the extreme weather event that we had in February.
And
And that's where you
standing
walk
water,
through to get to the building. So,
Right.
Like this past week, standing water probably still in that back parking lot, 6 or 7 inches deep in mud. So.
Okay.
right, so that's kind of a run-through, so that we know there would be a rate increase, and Reba reminded me this year, and this year as well as last year, we did not have a rate increase for the typical or average residential customer because we brought on 2 large volume users, and because of more water being sold, it benefited the residential customer. That's one reason why we want to continue to be in the water business and not have 2 water providers, because then the residential customer may pay more. So large volume users help the residential customer because it helps to distribute costs. And, but there would be a rate increase in 24 and 25. As of right now, with the plan that's in the budget today, not this proposed one, the rate increase would be $2.73 for the average household using, is it 6,000 gallons, Reba, or 5,000?
Yes, 6,000 gallons.
And so what we're saying is if we were recommending to include these 11 projects, that would add a 46 cents to that rate increase.
And that's the 3?
Right, it'd be $3.19. And so the rate would be the same in 24 and 25. Would have that.
That's the average of the two.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did we vote on reducing water rates?
Yep.
Right? We did, right? That was when?
For 22, 23, so you voted on it in 21.
In 21 for 22,
Right.
okay, for now.
Actually,
And we reduced the average residential customer about $6.12 per month
That's
at
right.
that point.
Yeah, and you know what, let me just, Reba, that 319, is that, you would divide that in 2 or average it, or is it 319 in each
The
of the two?
319 is averaged. So because we do smooth the rate over 2 years, the first year would actually be $1.59 increase, and the second year would be $4.79. So we average that, and it's $3.19.
What would the second year be?
$4.79. So when you average that increase, it comes to $3.19.
Okay.
Okay, okay. Councilman Lerma.
Thank you, Mayor. Peter, you and I have spoken about the Owen Stephen, about security issues out there.
What issues? Councilman?
Security?
Security, right.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking about our only plant that brings in water and produces water for the entire 500,000 people. And, I've been out there and I just feel that we have a big security problem, that anybody can basically jump over a fence and get to any part of that plant with no problem.
Right.
And I don't see any kind of monies being spent on security, cameras, patrol. I think that's a big issue for that
Yes,
plant, sir. I
Councilman.
mean,
Right.
that's one of the only plants that we have, but yet, and vehicles are traveling down there all the time.
Yes, sir. That is in our budget. So Nick, if you can kind of describe on the security
Sure.
issues for this
Ye-
year.
Yes, Councilman, it's CIP Project 22408, Owen Stevens Security Upgrades. So it's not a new project to this CIP plan. It was actually part of last year's CIP plan. But the goal there is to include new fencing, security cameras, and it's part of that project.
Right, so you said 2.7, so Councilman, there's almost $3 million in the 3-year plan. And then in the long-term plan, there's an additional 5.4 million. So it's, let's see, about $9 million, more or less, for security. But you're right, that's one of the things we noticed 3 years ago, is that this thing is almost wide open. So The staff presented a couple of proposals to me that I've asked them to revisit. But the money's there. They've had some companies look at initial things that are easy to do, like cameras, securing the border, the perimeter, at least with fencing to start. That's a high risk, the way it has been, and you're right, and you and I talked about that. So it's included in the budget, and it would be over the next 5 years, the implementation plan, with some immediate stuff being done right away.
Okay.
Yes, sir. And we've also had our local police department out there investigate the whole site and gave us recommendations for our budget. So we're working with PD on that also.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, thank you, Councilman.
I'm sorry, Councilman Hernandez.
Okay, I want to kind of go through this on the debt side because you brought this up here. In last year's capital improvement plan, you had, in the short-range plan, you had $252 million planned. However, that got reduced to $157 million in the actual budget for this year, the capital budget for this year. So you reduced it by almost $100 million. Am I looking at that correctly, from what you had planned last year?
Don't have less.
Councilman, there were a number of projects that we've moved out in terms of designs taking longer and also construction efforts and the bidding process.
So you just pushed it back a year, okay. So with that, you also, your debt service has been reduced significantly from, I guess, from debt service, from 38.2 million to 33.8 million. So if we're reducing our debt service expenditures, and we're only adding 8 million for this coming year, I'm assuming this is in addition, or is it taking into consideration the 33.8 million?
The 33.8 million is debt service on bonds that we've already sold.
Okay, so you haven't sold these yet, right? So
Correct.
this would be in addition to what you're already planning to spend on debt service.
When we need more funding for our CIP projects, bonds are sold. I don't know when the timing of that is, but I know that
So
going.
you're not, what you have here in the budget is only for what was previously sold, not what's you're planning to sell this year.
It was what was sold mostly in 2021, because that's when our debt service payments hit, usually is that next year, 2022, excuse me.
So it hits the following year. So the 2023 one for the 3 million is not going to hit till 2024, and the 24 million isn't going to hit till 2025, is what you're telling me.
Yes, sir. Typically, that's what happens. Now, we don't always sell all the revenue bonds to cover, all the projects don't proceed in the
Right,
plan
you
as
sell them when you need
presented.
them, right? So you're not sitting and paying
When the projects
interest.
don't always get done the year that they say they're going to get done either,
Correct.
right?
So what you're saying here is that because of the additional, I want to say 34 million over the next 2 years, we're going to have a rate increase of $4, a little over $4 for the next 2 years? I mean, what we're talking about is probably, what, $500,000 per year on a 30-year note? I'm just doing some rough math.
The rate that we showed you for the 24 and 25, the $3.19, that would include the debt service for 23 and 24, if we spend it like we budgeting in the plan.
Right, but I'm thinking if you're doing 35 million over a 30-year period, that's roughly what, little over 500,000 a year in debt service?
I'm not going to calculate debt service in my head.
3 million?
The 46
I'm
cents
sorry,
actually
2.5
represents
million,
about
sorry.
2.8
You're right, it's
million.
around 2.5 million. I was just thinking of the 8 million.
2.8 million is about the debt service on that
So you would go from,
32 million for the fiscal year 23 and 24.
so is anything going to fall off on debt service next year?
I believe some items did fall off because our debt service for 22 was 37.6.
Right, so over the next 2 years, which we're looking for the rate increase, is anything else going to fall off?
I don't have that information here.
So you got 7 million and you're adding 2.5 million,
Just on
but yet you're still increasing rates.
Well, a lot of things go into that rate calculation. It's not just CIP. It's operating, it's personnel, and it's
Yeah,
all
you're-
of the factors.
Now, we're just
that we
talking
use.
water, right?
Yes.
We're not talking wastewater. Wastewater, I
Right.
think you have, what, 18 million in debt service on the wastewater?
That sounds about right.
Okay, so I'm just looking at this holistically. So you're adding 20 people in water and 28 people in wastewater.
18 in water and 28, yes,
You're adding 48 people, right?
46. With the extra outreach person, it's 46.
I thought it said 48.
And we've got 17 in water
It says 48.
18
and
now.
28 in wastewater.
Yeah, 20 in water, 28 in wastewater, right?
17 in water, 28, that's 45. What are you?
But we're
You have
adding the
48 on
extra
your
person.
We're adding-
presentation.
So
we're
it's
adding one.
18 and
Yeah.
28. 18 in water and 28 in wastewater.
And where those other two people are,
I'll get to the end.
it says 48 on your presentation.
That is because of the warehouse positions that we acquired in '22.
Okay.
This year, we acquired the warehouse, and so we received employees with that, so that makes up.
So that's your additional two people.
Yeah, the warehouse that was in
Okay. And
purchasing.
that's fine.
Yeah.
And we moved one
going by-
position to stormwater.
I'm going by the documentation you gave me, so I guess in looking at some of the cost expenditures, and I, and just to add to this, in water, you have a 64% increase in fuel cost. Now, I know fuel's going up, but I don't know if it's over 64%. You have, and correct me if I'm wrong, what's your overtime policy?
Well, we have a pretty extensive one. I haven't looked at it recently, but it includes, number one, that overtime has to be approved by a
Well, in terms of budgeting.
budget. I don't know if we have one for budgeting.
Okay.
The goal is to make sure they have appropriate full-time positions so we're not overusing overtime.
Well,
Yeah.
it just for overtime budgeting, you have almost 6% in water overtime, and then 10.2% in overtime for wastewater. So I'm just, and then,
Well, you want to stop right there and let Wes address that on his, because he's the one that's doing most
well, I
overtime.
mean, from my experience, if you go over 3% in overtime, you're looking at management, not necessarily what's happening in
Okay,
overtime.
well, this is
So
a water
I just-
utility fund,
If you
so-
can kind of explain.
Okay.
So our overtime, the way we budget overtime is looking at previous years, the amount we were required to do. Unlike most industries, most businesses, we have to respond. We can't wait. It's, it's a 24/7 process. On top of that, we have people who, with vacation, sick leave, especially with COVID, you had to take into account that you had to have coverage for those people. Then complicated once again with the drought, we are responding to water leaks a lot quicker. We have crews that are working 5, 6, 7 days a week now, scheduled 5, not just call-ins. So our overtime, just if you look at everything I just said, can vary greatly. So what we try to do is look at historical numbers, the number of breaks we've had, the number of calls, how much our city, how much our customer base is expanding. And we try to come up with numbers that make sense. Then we do manage our overtime quite extensively. Like the CM was saying, they do have to have our approval before they go do something. A supervisor approval, but we do have on-call staff that is pre-approved overtime. So it is if we had more staff, we would have less overtime, but you cannot always budget for your peak issues as well. Like this year, we're going to probably surpass our overtime budget, but it's mainly due to the drought. We expended an enormous amount of labor in June and July, taking care of water leaks. It's tapered off again, we're back to normal, but just that little bit has really impacted us.
Plus, you're also increasing your overall head count by
Yes.
18 people, right? Is that going to be, is
It-
that taken into consideration?
Yes, it is. And one of the things, though, a lot of what we're increasing are things that weren't done before. For instance, the preventative maintenance crew, the valve preventative maintenance crew. We're doing a lot more street reconstructions with a lot of utilities that go underneath. To do that, we have to operate valves. We don't let contractors touch any of our water valves. Well, with the increased amount of pipe we're replacing, that means I have to have additional staff to go out and close these, do isolation plans in the field. So that is why we're asking for that staff. That should actually help reduce some of the overtime going forward with the staff. But the problem is we keep moving forward with increasing our CIPs and being able to replace more of this water, more water lines, more wastewater lines. So we do keep, just by improving the system, we are having to expend that overtime. But I'll give you a good example where we do save, Councilman. We did 3 years ago, budget initiative for wastewater line repair crews for service lines. We had a contract with the contractor. It was about $1.5 million we spent a year with the contractor to do service line repairs.
For wastewater or?
For wastewater.
Okay.
But this is just kind of goes to the heart of what we can do. We added 3 additional crews. We had a backlog of 400 work orders, service lines that needed to be repaired. It was 9 to 12 months of a backlog. Right now, we're at about a 25 work order backlog, and we take care of them within 10 to 12 days. And we're not expending that $1.5 million. You're doing it with 3 crews that are budgeted at about $300,000 versus the $1.5 million we were spending with the contractor. But like, once again, these gentlemen do get overtime, so there's the impact as well on operations. When you bring that in, you get rid of contractors, you do increase your overtime as well there. So it's a balancing act across the board.
Mr. Hernandez, at a fund level, our proposed overtime is actually lower by about $200,000. And our estimate is actually going to be over, like Wes pointed out, because of the extreme drought and a lot more water breaks. But we have come up with a 3-year average on our overtime, and it's $200,000 less than it was budgeted for this year. And
Okay.
the same in wastewater, at a fund level.
Okay, so sometimes the numbers don't quite match what you're saying. Like, for example, in your maintenance and repairs budget for wastewater, you have a decrease of almost $800,000. In your contracted service for maintenance and repairs, it's pretty much the same as what was budgeted, but your amended budget on contracted repairs was up by $1 million that you spent
Which,
from last year.
or are you looking at a specific org, or are you looking at a fund level?
I'm looking at a specific, they're all the orgs that are associated with wastewater. So
Right.
that's
With
like
wastewater.
Broadway, Wastewater Treatment Plant,
Okay.
all the ones that are associated with them. But it's the same account, the 430215. So when you total them up, I mean, you've spent $1 million more in contracted service for those contracted maintenance repairs, and you budgeted, and it's budgeted less, but it's still more than the internal maintenance and repairs.
Right, but you're looking at it, but we can't look at it with just one account. I'm talking about a single contract that we were able to get rid of. That contract, if we hadn't hired those individuals to help, we would still have that in this
Okay,
contract.
I get it, but I'm looking at your overall budget, right?
Right.
And what
And-
you're spending as a total, not as a single, I
Right.
can't look at things in isolation.
And that budget is going to increase as we move through the consent decree and as we move through water pipe replacement. simply because the consent decree requires us to first assess our issues, right? Where we're at, and then go out and fix them. So if we have maintenance costs that are increasing, we are having to increase our CIP funds as well to meet those problems we're finding.
Well, yeah, well,
That's-
you're talking about replacing a lot of things through the CIP and
Right.
doing major repairs, but I'm talking about your regular maintenance,
Right.
right? So your your regular maintenance is actually down from last year for wastewater.
By $24,000. Is that what you're showing?
Are you talking just contracted maintenance, or are you talking about overall maintenance?
The
with-
maintenance and repairs contracted is actually gone up 330,000, or gone down, I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's gone down 330,000.
Right, and then the maintenance.
Now,
and-
that's budgeted, right?
That's
Your amended,
budgeted.
your amended budget has it at 3.8 million.
That was those are rollovers from the previous year, contracts from the previous year.
Councilman, are
We always
you-
compare it to the adopted.
Can we
Yeah,
wrap it up?
Honestly, I didn't get completely understanding of what my questions are in terms of how they're budgeting and how it looks at what they're saying doesn't necessarily match what's in the numbers. So I'll get that offline.
Yeah, okay, all right, thank you. Council, go ahead and finish, yeah.
So, I think if any, yeah, we try to beat this first. Owen Stevens.
Will you bring that microphone over to you?
I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
thank
Next
you.
slide, please. All right, so just a breakdown of the capital improvement projects, investments, 55 million at Owen Stevens, and we thought this would be a good slide just to let you know the work that we're doing at our only water treatment facility. So we've got the raw water influent and chemical facilities improvements, $20 million. The chlorine system improvements, $10.5 million, which is part of a much larger project. Clear well number 3, construction, 13.1. Sedimentation basin improvements, electric improvements, flocculation and baffling upgrades. Filtration system improvements, security and site system improvements, Councilman Lerma, and then pump station recycle pond improvements. So there's a lot of work that is happening to maintain this old station. So a lot of work going on there, but very critical, and it's all in an effort to increase our flow. Right now, we can treat up to probably 120 to 140 million gallons per day at Owen Stevens, and our goal is to elevate that number if and when we get the Mary Road pipeline up and running at full speed. Today, I think today, Esteban, were we flowing today at Owen Stevens? I put you on the spot there. Probably somewhere in the 90 million gallon range today because of the rainfall that we've had. And then also our drought restrictions that we have put in place. So we see some numbers going down there, which is a good thing, good healthy thing. All right, next slide. So our wastewater CIP, we're proposing a $121.4 million budget this year. That is wastewater utility support service. Oh, did I touch something? What did I do? Sorry. Did I? There we go. Thank you. I'm sure it was me hitting one of these buttons over here. Sorry. So the wastewater support utility and streets, a little over $16 million. Wastewater system improvements, $8.5 million. Wastewater system maintenance, about $23.4 million. The wastewater lift stations, $33.4 million, and then wastewater treatment plants, $39 million. So the project highlights of this budget will be to replace and upsize wastewater collection system lines, infrastructure process improvements at all 6 wastewater treatment plants, $9.2 million in American Rescue Plan Act funds for lift station rehabilitation, including the Williams, Wooldridge, and Morgan lift stations, and then the London area wastewater collection system improvement plan. And then finally, the Water Street, this is in conjunction with the Water Street line replacement program downtown. The funding source is 92% from revenue bonds, and then 8% from the American Rescue Plan Act. So again, like we just went through with water utilities, based on occurrences from the past year, the staff has put together a list of projects. Now this, like the city manager was saying earlier, this list of projects started out much larger than this, and going through a series of conversations and moving projects out and reducing projects, we came up with this final list, I think of 7 new projects that we want to add to our CIP list for this year. And so our plan is to do $53.8 million worth of projects, $18 million in '23, $26 million in '24, and then closing out with $9 million in '25. And so, Reba, you want to go through the rate model changes on this, please?
We did a similar modeling for the impact on our wastewater, average wastewater customer for these specific projects if they were added to our CIP. The proposed operating and CIP budget rate increase would be $5.67.
Can we go to the next slide, please?
Oh. And of that $5.67 increase, 98 cents would be due to these additional 7 projects in '23 and '24.
And that 567, is that the average, or what is going to be the end rate?
That's the average between '24 and '25. It's smooth for '24 and '25.
So what's the unsmooth? So what, the council will be approving how much?
$5.67 divided by 2.
Yes, what are you going to come to council with?
Well, we're not proposing any rate changes in '23.
Yeah, but let's move the clock forward. What would you be coming? You're not going to say smooth at 567. You're going to give us, council will be approving a rate increase of what?
As far as percent,
No.
Number?
Dollar like you gave us for water, Reba?
I'm not interested in smooth. I'm interested in what that dollar amount will be.
what the amount would have been for '24 and '25?
Yes. Now, the end result, at the end of '25, how much is the ratepayer going to be paying?
$5.67.
Okay, but before you talked on the water, it was average, you gave us a $3 and something cents, and then, but said the end result was 4 something.
We took the rate and divided it, the difference by 2, and then added it and subtracted it to either end. That's how you came up with the average.
I guess from my standpoint, I'm interested in what the increase council would be voting on. Council doesn't vote on an average on there. You know, at the end of 2 years, how much more is that the ratepayer going to be paying?
$5.67.
Okay, but you said on water that you smoothed it, and you published $3.19 on there, but the end.
That's how we come up with our 2-year rate.
Yeah.
So, if I understand, Councilman, you're wanting to know how we came up with the
Well, what
the 567?
I guess I'm not looking at a smooth, I'm going back to water at 319, but we'd really be, at the end of the period, we're raising the rates 4 something, right? That's what you said?
No.
Was that right, Reba, what you said? Let's go back to water, because you had told us, Councilman Smith and I heard it, you said $1.59 for '24 and $4.79 for the next year.
Yeah.
Were those numbers right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it was, yeah, exactly, it was
So
$1.59 and
what is wastewater? We're going to do a
$4.79.
two-step too?
No, we wouldn't be proposing an increase for '24 and for '25. We would be a different increase from '24 to '25. We would be proposing an increase for '24 and '25. And for
single,
water, it would be $3.19, and for wastewater, it would be $5.67.
Okay, in water, we're doing a two-step increase.
No, we're not proposing that.
I'm sorry, let me see if I can
Where
take
does the
it.
$4 and something, so we got, you're telling us $3.19 and you're telling us $4 and
No,
something.
let
so-
me see if I can take a shot at this. So we only increase our water rate once every 2 years,
Yeah,
right? So in water specifically, the first year would be $1.59, and the second year would be $4.79.
two steps.
Right.
But then you throw this 319. Are we increasing any time 319?
If I could, let me finish, and I'll, hopefully
Yeah.
we'll get there. So it's $1.59 first year.
Yeah, first step.
Second year, $4.79. Since we're only increasing every 2 years, we take those 2 years, add them together, divide it by 2, and that's how we come up with our average of 319. It'll be a 319 for FY '24, and that same 319 for FY '25, which equals what it would have been if we had done them individually.
Okay.
But we average that. So we have a, how did we say this? The first year, we're going to have a revenue surplus, or no, a revenue
Surplus.
Yeah, I
That's
would,
right.
yeah.
But in the second year, we're going to have a decrease.
So as we roll into 26, what are we standing at? 319, or we 4 something?
No, it's
319.
319.
Okay.
Yeah,
It's the average.
that's the
Of the
average,
two
right? So you
increases.
explained it, Murphy. I think if we could go to, we
But
can go over again if you want.
417 to, hell, we're in a deficit right now anyway, but,
Yeah. Yeah, so the 319 adjustment hits the bill in '24, and then that same rate or same bill would be for the next 12 months, and then the next 12 months, same thing. You wouldn't see a
carried over.
difference. If you use the same amount of water, your bill would be identical
Can
for
I-
24
can I-
months.
I just want to add, so,
Yeah.
so 417 is what you need over the course of 2 years. So what you're gonna, that's the,
No.
no, wait. Let me finish. So I'm saying that's the aggregate. So what you're going to do is you're going to collect 319 in the first year, so that way you have that surplus. And then so you're going to have a surplus, and then 319 is what, it's just the 417 is what you need over the course of the 2 years.
Where's the 417 number? from?
417, I'm not.
Well, what was the number that we
Five.
said?
It was 479.
479, okay, I'm sorry.
Okay.
The 479 is what you need aggregate. And so what you're doing in the first year, you're collecting a greater amount, so that way you don't have to collect it later.
Right. Well, that's just how when they do the divide by 2, Councilman, that's what happens. Because that's what happens. That's why Councilman Smith's point, that this year we're collecting less revenue than the expenditures, and we're using fund balance, because in year 1 of the 2-year rate, we collected a little bit more, and we use that money now to balance the 1-year operating expense.
Right.
So that's one way of looking at it.
Yeah,
That's
so-
that's the result of having the rate model that we currently use, because it's designed on a year-to-year. But at some point, the decision was made to use a 2-year rate so that there wouldn't be a change of a water rate every year. And so we have the ability within the rate then to come up with an average for those 2 years. And that's the rate that we propose, and we have done that the last 4 or 5 cycles.
About 8 to 10 years.
I'm not sure we got it, but it's a pretty linear form, the way that we're doing this. It's very linear in its construction. And to answer Councilman Barrera's question, so the 479, if we separated them out and we did a rate increase every year, okay? The first year would be, in the water, we're talking water, the first increase would be $1.59. All right, and the next year, it would be a $4.79 increase. And so all we did is we just averaged those 2 numbers, and that's what we're going to spend over the next 2 years in 24, 25. It's just an average, very, very linear. And that's because we only increase our rates once every 2 years. And this is all projections. These are all our assumptions of what things are going to look like in the next 2 or 3 years. Okay?
So is there, I'm sorry, Mayor.
Go ahead. No,
So
go
is there
ahead.
any anticipated growth in the model? I mean, we're using that to be able to calculate our revenues.
Yes, we use a growth rate in connections. We also use the amount of water, and then our operating costs, personnel costs, there's a factor, a rate that we increase for every year.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Okay, Councilman Smith.
Thank you. I know the clock is starting to tick and we're losing council members on there, but I want to back up to a little bit of the bigger picture with there, and council members are with. Anyway, where are we? Right now, we have about $800 million in debt in our utility system. What we're talking about, the proposed budget is $1,042 million in additional expenditures. We're adding today another $96 million. That's $1,138 million in spending over the next 3 years. We could fix all of our streets for this. It doesn't come for nothing on there. We're going to add about $70 million in debt service. So we're going back and forth talking pennies. We're not on there. Looking at it, our wastewater system on there, we add that debt service. When we get to the end of that time, if we do that amount of spending, we need to raise our rates 30%. That's across the board. I don't know about 6,000 or whatever. We have to generate 30% more revenue. On our water system, to spend that extra, we have to generate $49 million more in revenue to cover the additional debt service. That's a 36% rate increase. Now, I took a look at operating side on there. Since 21 to the proposed budget, so it's a 2-year, like you all are talking about that. Our revenue is down 4.5%. Our expenses, once you back out the stormwater change on there, is up 21%. We have funded this year out of fund balance. We're proposing to fund next year the coming out of fund balance. Our fund balance will be down 74%. We're going from $29 million in our reserves to $7 million in reserves. Now, I'm seeing some of these rate calculations on there with it. I have difficulty making them add up. Like I said, this is basically what I talked about. If we do the proposed CIP plus the new 29% to cover that additional debt service on their water, we need to do 36% with it. As far as our balance sheet and the impacts there, we're doubling our enterprise debt, more than doubling that. So can we maintain our credit ratings? I doubt it. Coverage ratios and things like that, the numbers I'm saying to increase, that's to increase the additional debt. It's not what New York or Wall Street's going to expect for our coverage ratios. They're going to want to see more than that because our coverage ratios have been going down. They like to see for every additional dollar in debt service, they like to see a coverage ratio of 1.5. So
Right.
if we...
Councilman, not to interrupt, but actually our ratios go up. I don't know if you have the sheet that Constance gave me, but.
No, I have not seen that, so are we looking, I think we need to look very, very closely at this. Our history on, since I've been on council, as far as future assumptions, has not been good. We're sitting right now, I'm looking at a $9 million operating deficit, and we cut rates last year. That's not good business.
Will you explain that because of the smoothing, we collect more in the first year, and we're using that?
Peter, we have got a $9 million deficit this year, and we're budgeting a $10 million deficit. What kind of rating agency are our customers going to say about that? We're operating in the red. Now, we're proposing to operate in the red, and we're more than doubling our debt.
Right. I'm not about doubling, but we have had Noe Hinojosa and Paul Jack, our financial advisors, along with us this whole budget process. To include a Saturday, 2 Saturdays ago. They feel confident in this proposal. We talked about debt coverage ratios. They actually go up. Today they're at 1.39. We talked about 1.15 as the base. They go up to 1.4 and then 1.73 by 2025. So we've had them engaged. We talked about debt ratios. We talked about we want to keep our rating agency credit rating the same or better. They told us, we're paying these folks, the professionals, that the plan we have today won't impact the bond rating for our system, for our combined utility system. That's coming from Noe and Paul Jack, Noe Hinojosa and Paul Jacks. So those are just some additional comments to you. So we understand the issue of the fund balance, but that's based on that 2-year cycle that we have been using for a decade, where we collect a little bit more in year 1, and then that's used in year 2 to help balance it. that has to be put into play. And people, I think somebody looking at this, we would explain it to them that I wouldn't recommend not having that system in place and drawing down fund balance, but because we have that more revenue in 1 year versus the second, that's the impact.
Peter, we've got a $10 million deficit this year. We had a $10 million deficit last year. That's $20 million we burned through in 2 years. So, yeah, I've made the comment about an interim rate increase. Yeah, I'm looking at this just as numbers, reading a financial statement, not getting into the weeds and this kind of stuff. But over doubling our debt, which is the debt incurred over, multi-years with it. The numbers are hard on what we have to increase to cover that debt service on there. And there's some projects. Sure, we can get the PVC out of the sunlight and some of these other kind of things. But, okay, consumers out there, we're going to have to raise rates over this period, 30% on there with it. I just have trouble with it there. That revenue down 4.5% over 2 years. Expenses up 21% over 2 years. Fund balance down 74%. That is not a pretty financial statement. And one last comment on here that, this is a business, it's an enterprise, $240 million enterprise on there. And usually in an organization that side, you have your chief financial person right next door, because that's what we're talking about here. In our org chart, we've got the CEO, then a director level, and an assistant director, and then we get into finance. We're talking major money, major assumptions on here with it, with major impact. So where we finance over 30 years on there with it, if we make some mistakes with it, we're going to be paying for, the ratepayers will be paying for over 30 years.
Yeah, Councilman, in the org chart, that's on page 5, the director over support is our financial person as well.
Well, it doesn't say that on the org
Yeah,
chart.
we'll make it clear for the
You go
next
down
one.
to finance on that.
Right, that would be Reba, so
Yeah,
she's
okay.
our lead financial, she reports directly to Mike Murphy. It's one step below.
Yeah,
It's
well,
important.
that's good. That's a little bit of a sidebar.
Right.
But,
I know, Councilman, so what we've
and,
seen,
and,
what I've seen.
and then one last thing, Peter.
Yes, sir.
I've seen it, I'm a nerd, so at night I go through financial statements.
Okay.
And a lot of times I'll go through municipal ones. I'm not looking at the weeds, I'm looking at big pictures on it.
Right.
That where these organizations are going out and making long-term CIPs, they're also doing long-term rate increases with it. So we're sitting here looking at, okay, we're going to be obligating to the future with it, but we're relying on future councils to do it. We've got a 3-year plan here. We're going to be adding $70 million in debt title. ICL, OCL, inside, outside, 6,000 or whatever. How are we going to pay in our rate structure that extra debt service over that 3-year period? And as a council member, that's what I would like to see on there. It's what I asked for there. What is the rate impact over the next 3 years? How much do we can do it on a 2-year cycle, 1-year cycle. We switch from 1 to 2, or we can go back or whatever. Yep. But I don't think it's doing any good to anybody on this council to go out and approve a $1.1 billion plan without knowing what the rate increase is going to have to be, and a good, hard analysis of that rate increase.
Yeah, Councilman, we showed you, just as you asked, we have the 2 years, so for the rate increase, that $3 and some odd
This is
cents.
backloaded. You got a 3-year CIP, and you need to give us 3 years.
Okay, we can add 1 more year to that, Reba. Does the model go up 1 more year?
Yeah.
Can the rate model go out 1 more year? Okay, we can do that. So we did the 2 years, and we can add 1 more year based on the 3-year plan. But of course, when you get out to that year 3 with a lot of unknown variables, that's going to be It's going to be, not have a whole lot of confidence in it, but it'll be something that we can use.
Houston's got a 5-year plan. I looked at one in the valley. They've got 5-year plans on there. And these were consent decree.
We can do it. I'm just
Yeah.
saying, anytime you get past year 1 and 2, the confidence level diminishes because of unknown variables, to include things like pandemics, supply chain issues, labor issues, inflation. Right, so it's an estimate, just be
Well,
mindful of it.
that's
Yeah.
right. We're estimating the CIP. Let's
Okay.
estimate that $70 million in there and what it's going to cost.
Right, we'll add that one more year.
Yeah.
I would say, Councilman, that you're right on the business. It's a little upside down, but we're trying to come out of decades of neglect. Our system is not where it should be, being the 8th largest city in the country. And just take the Mary Rhodes pipeline as an example. We shouldn't be in a reactionary mode, having 2 breaks and not really understanding the quality of the line. A lot of these things we're recommending are getting the system to where it needs to be as a baseline. It's not. So we have compounded issues, which is we're trying to take care of decades of neglect and run the modern business.
Well,
so you're right. It's a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
And when you let the system go, that's what happens.
Well, we're also taking care of poor choices in the past.
Exactly. You're right about that.
We're talking about turning a $10 million water storage tank into a shed with it, spending $3 million on that.
Yeah.
You know, we've got 30 million gallons of ground storage right now that's sitting empty. I don't want, we brought up the Owen Stevens. What's our direction on water? We're going desal. Desal comes with its own treatment. We don't need to be adding capacity to Owen Stevens if we're going down desal, because you don't need to.
Yeah, we're not adding capacity.
Okay, but no,
Yeah.
this has got to be fair.
Yeah.
Councilman, okay, if you're going to say that, what's the response? So it can't be, I know
We're
that
not adding
you guys are not
capacity.
sitting around going, well,
Yeah.
let's just throw money at Mary Rhodes Pipeline. Tell us why it is important and it is critical to spend $3.3 million on Mary Rhodes.
Yeah.
Being that we're about to, go
That-
the other direction and get our water through desal, right?
Yeah,
Or
that's
at
just
least
one
open that.
example. The Mary Rhodes is a good example where we need to be doing assessments of it. We should have been. We haven't been as an agency. It was built in the 80s, and we had 2 substantial breaks. We all know about them this summer. But just take a better example to talk about what Councilman is talking about is the lines that go to the island, a very important part of our city. We have one main 24-inch line that was built 50 years ago. The redundant line that this city put in was not the right size. They put in an 18-inch. Bad choice. They should have put in a 24-inch. They didn't. So now we're at a point where if the 24-inch breaks, we can't get water to the island. We don't want to be in that position. So that's why we're recommending a new line that would be brought to Padre Island to do it the right way. So if that older 50-year-old 24-inch pipe breaks, guess what? We can still get water to the island. So those are the choices where we're at. We can not do it, but we don't want to take that risk.
I've gone down the list, and there's some,
Yeah.
so like Mary Rhodes, I was pushing, we're not pulling Mary Rhodes to capacity with it. We wouldn't have a water issue right now if we did. I fully, I was the
Right.
one encouraging moving Mary Rhodes up
You're right, you
on
did.
there. But, going down the list, warehouses, $400,000 for a boat ramp in Lake Corpus Christi. Is this a critical item issue? You've got, going down the list, there's a lot of things that I support on the list, Peter.
Yes, sir.
I don't want to say that. I'm looking, though, at Owen Stevens. Do we, correct me if I'm wrong, if we go desal on there, will that be going through Owen Stevens? So our future water supplies, then we're talking about running Owen Stevens up to 200 MGD, and we're running 90 MGD right now, where our direction is going where it comes with its own treatment before it. These are the kind of
Are you talking about
things.
the Clearwell system there?
We've got hundreds of millions of dollars we're spending in Owen Stevens. So-
Right, and that is for no expansion. That's just to keep the plant
Well,
running.
no, we're talking some expansion. You go through the pumps and things like that. We're looking at having Owen Stevens designed for 200 million gallons a day, and we've approved some of that stuff in the past.
The staff will have to, I can't comment on that. Is that accurate, for 200 million gallons a day?
Okay. This isn't totally my area,
Yeah.
Councilman Smith, but yes, the plant, I believe, was originally designed between 180 and 200 million gallons when it was originally designed. council has approved CIP projects to help us meet that, because when it was built, there were bottlenecks in the process. One thing you had commented on was, you're right, we're running 80, 90 on average right now, but we've seen that jump 20% in 1 year. So to assume that the plant doesn't need to be expanded, I think that's a dangerous road to go down, because even if we build desal, something can happen where the desal plant goes down. If we're at 140, 150 MGD, we have to be able to support that, or nobody will have water. So the redundancy with the plant, that will still be your primary source of water. And until we maybe can build 3 or 4 desal plants that supply the 100, 150 million, if that's the direction they want to go. But we have to keep looking at Owen Stevens in that, kind of through that lens, that it will be the primary.
Okay, so I think an option like what we're looking at for the council's consideration, the Evangeline Water Project.
Right.
That could bring on 25 MGDs, that would go to Owen Stevens.
It would.
Okay, so at that point, we'd be at 175 MGDs.
Yes.
Okay.
No, it would be 125. 115 today on there.
Right.
But we ought to make that decision if we bring Evangeline on. So why are we doing it on an assumption that we have a 20% probability in this $1.1 billion ask we're doing today?
Yeah, what we know, Councilman, is that our water production is up. This year, in the summer months, it was 115 MGDs, which when Wes started, he was 6 years ago, was in the 60s.
40s,
The
50s.
40s. Okay, so it was in the 40s and 50s. Today, it's twice that amount.
Yes.
If our production is up, why is our revenue down?
I don't think it's down from 6-8 years ago.
Well, I'm
Councilman.
talking about now.
Now because of that 2-year
Earlier,
smoothing.
y'all said the production's up, and I'm looking at the budget, and our revenue's down.
Yeah, that's part of the 2-year smoothing
That's
issue.
part of the rate model. Yeah, our production is up. Yeah, and we lowered the rate. That impacted. That's what.
Well, it looks like we made a big whiff on that, didn't we?
No, we did the right thing.
We did the right thing. We ran us
Right.
into a $10 million deficit this year because we shouldn't have lowered the rate.
No, it's the 2-year smoothing, so we collected more in year 1, and year 2, we're using some of that excess revenue to balance the books.
Eddie told us our fund balance ought to be 25%. Right, Eddie? Correct. Okay, so is that based on revenue?
Expenditures, yeah.
Appropriation. So we're appropriating 135 million?
On the water side, 144.
Well, 144. So what's 25% of 144? About $36 million. And we're sitting at, what are we planning on, a $6 million reserve?
The reserve is actually 20.8 million,
Yeah, but
and
It's
that's based on all
26.
your operating costs, not including debt.
Yeah, Councilman,
backing out to that. Okay, our fund balance, the proposed budget drops 74% at the end of the fiscal year. We go from $29 million to $7 million. That's what you have told us.
29 for the actual, Councilman?
We were 29 before,
Right.
yes.
So that reserve, Eddie, that line, reserve for contingencies, is that the 25%?
Yes,
Yeah,
sir.
so Councilman, the fund balance is a combination of two things. That line called reserve for contingencies, that's the 25% reserve.
Okay.
Okay, so we're good there. In all of our 3 years, we have 25% in cash, $20 million in the proposed budget. Then on top of that, we have what you call the ending balance, $7 million.
Yeah.
So 27 compared to what we had in 2001, which was, looks like 45. So, but we don't want to be sitting on a bunch of cash and having our system fall apart. So we're good with the council approved policy, which is 25% in reserve. We have that. And then on top of that, we have 7 million. So we're being mindful about using revenues to keep the system up and running appropriately for 500,000 people.
I think I completely disagree. That what we're doing here, running at a deficit, not only this current year, but next year on there, is not sound fiscal policy. reducing our balance from $29 million to $7 million when we don't have any emergencies, freezes, storms, or anything else that you hold that balance for, dam breaks, is not sound fiscal policy.
Yeah, at fund balance, just to repeat though, is that we have 20 million in the 25% reserve plus the 7 million, so it's 27 million, not 7. We have 27 million in excess. We heard the report the other day, they talked about leftover money after all expenditures. After all of our expenditures and debt service, we have $27 million.
Okay, so why am I reading, pray tell me on that we have a $7 million ending
Yeah,
balance?
because the ending balance has two components. There's a line that says reserve for contingencies. It probably would be better written to say reserve for the 25%.
Okay.
Okay, so that's a 25% reserve to be consistent with council policy. Then you have the ending balance, which is at 6.9. So those two are excess monies. It's 27 million sitting there.
Yeah.
25% for the council
And
approved
Mr.
policy.
Smith, the reserve for contingencies also went up about 4 million from 21 to 2023. So some of that net ending balance has been shifted to the contingencies total.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I say, I think we're heading for the cliff with this one.
Councilman, the good thing about our budget process is that we don't just come here and then not look at it for 12 months. So we're looking at this weekly, monthly. We do quarterly reports to city council. The city's done a great job at doing that,
Yeah.
even before I got here. So part of running the business is constant monitoring and evaluation. If things look like they're going the wrong way, we'll change course in how we spend. It's I wouldn't say simple, but it's a constant evaluation. What we do know is that decades of neglect is not going to help us moving forward. We're trying to right those wrongs. We're trying to correct decisions that were made that didn't do this city well when it comes to this wastewater system, like putting in lines that are too small. And we're trying to keep the rates favorable. And with the big picture that we're trying to keep them so favorable that we can move desal forward to have a drought-proof supply. So those are kind of the guiding principles in how we looked at the budget this year to develop it. What we do know is if we don't fix these items now, we're gonna have to fix them later. And what we do know is it's probably gonna cost more. And we may be in an emergency situation where we can't provide adequate water or wastewater services and we don't wanna be there. So
Well,
those are,
Like I say, I'm looking at it from a financial standpoint. I don't think you said we're notified on there. Who on this council knew we were running a $10 million deficit in the water system? Okay, one.
135 and then spending 144?
Yeah, but I mean, were you notified of getting this budget, Gil?
No, I just looked at it.
Just looked at the budget, that's right. Do you see we're $10 million in the hole next year? Did you see that part?
I see based on what expenditures
Yeah.
do, but then it says it has a $27 million fund balance.
Okay, spend it down.
But I don't know is that something that's a static number that we kept from the previous year?
that's
Councilman
a
Turner.
25% of expenditures, Councilman, yeah.
That's our budget.
Could you turn your mic on, please?
That's our budget policy. You
Right.
have to have that.
Yeah.
Right? That's in
Yeah.
accordance with the budget policy that we all approved.
Right.
You have to have that contingency because of the, we're hurricane prone, right? We
Right.
have to have those in place. So, but that's just in case, right? But to run that deficit, and in my question for this, and why I get into the weeds is because I want to see what kind of cost measures you're doing. Some things don't make sense. 10% overtime in wastewater, but 5% in water, but the water budget is much higher. I mean, overall, 144 versus 70, what is it, 74? I'm sorry. Well, right, 78, sorry, 78. So, and then your fuel costs, you have a 64% increase in water and then a 40% decrease in wastewater in your fuel expenses. Some things just aren't adding up to me, and that's why I was kind of trying to figure out what you're trying to do in terms of your budgeting. So, from the micro level as opposed to the macro level, which Councilman Smith is looking at, just so I can make it fit, right? What are we doing up here, and how does it match down here? So, you're increasing your overall, when you take everything into consideration from 217 million to 224 million, and in terms of your total expenditures for both water and wastewater, but I'm not really seeing why, right? why do we constantly need, and this is your operating budget, not your CIP, this is your operating, you're actually lowering your debt service from last year to this year, right? From 38 million to 33 million. So it's not making, things aren't matching up. We should, in terms of what we need to do, obviously we have to deal with the neglect from years gone by. We're in a consent agreement with the EPA. I get it. TCEQ jumped all over us because of the water boils. I get it. But sometimes the budget's not matching with what we're saying here. And so I want to make sure that that everything kind of makes sense.
Right.
And help us out here, because it's
Okay.
not making sense.
Let me take a shot at it, then I'll turn it over to the team here. But over the course of the last almost 24 months, every single thing that we deal with in water and wastewater has gone up. Whether it's hiring new employees, whether it's chemicals for our water treatment facility, whatever we're doing, price of materials, delays in projects, contracts are up, elevated. Everything that we're dealing with it's not dissimilar from what is happening at your house. Fuel prices have gone up. 24 months ago, what were they? For a gallon of diesel was maybe $2 a gallon, and right now it's over $5 a gallon. That's stuff that we use every single day, not just in our equipment, our vehicles, but in our equipment. Everything has gone up. Painting a water tower, the price of paint has gone up. The price of the contract has gone up. Everything that we bring to you, it seems like it's got an adder of millions of dollars. What was originally budgeted in our 5-year plan was a $3 million project. Now we're coming back to you and saying it's a $4.5 million project. Nothing is different in the design. Nothing is different in the construction. It's just that supply chain issues, cost of labor, everything has gone up. So we're having to deal with that, and we've got to present that. We've got to include that in our budget. So that's the easy description there. As far as employees, hiring a contractor is really good for us. We use a lot of really good contractors here, but we can sometimes be quicker and more affordable. That's what Wes is adding employees to their staff for, because we are trying to bring those prices down, but we have to go through this process of bringing in new employees. And so everything, from changing a tire on a truck to buying new equipment has gone up. I don't know a single thing that hasn't gone up. And when I say gone up, we just look at Owen Stevens. A lot of these projects, yes, will help us. It's not the sole reason to increase the capacity. The main reason to do this is to maintain water quality in an old water treatment facility, which is very complicated. It's not easy. A new desal plant, yes, would be a great benefit, but we still have to maintain the water quality coming out of that water treatment facility. And I stood right before this council when we had a bad plug of water that went through our system back in January, February, and this council told me, do whatever it takes, bring back to us whatever you need to use new technology at our water treatment facility so that we don't have this problem again. Well, here they are. These are what we're bringing back. It was your direction to me and to my staff to bring this stuff back to us and include it. We heard you loud and clear. We had a nasty plug working its way through the system, and that's what we're trying to address those. And
Councilman-
that's my
Councilman
response.
Smith, can I add also to the expansion of the water plant? One thing I didn't get to was the easiest analogy is we're at 200. You got to realize that's our peak operating. Most of the time we're operating with trains down, we're operating with pumps down, pump stations down, whether it's for maintenance, due to failure, whatever it is. So during that course of time, even though we're saying we're at 200, we're expanded to 200, we might only be able to operate at any given time at 120, 140, because you can, that's if everything's working perfectly. So some of the expansion is due to the fact that during times like the freeze event, things like that, when we needed to be at the peak flow, we needed to have those peak flows, we had those constraints where we couldn't be. So that's why we need to be able to do some of these expansions to get the plant to where it needs to be so we can treat 120 MGD all the time, even if something fails.
Okay, and Mike, I really appreciate your comment about the slug on there. So, council did give you that direction. Now you're coming back and saying, this is what the cost is.
Yes, sir.
With it. So to me, if any one message coming out of here, a good, vetted, hard analysis on what the impacts are
Yes, sir.
with it. That's,
We've got that
And
message.
we're almost there. We have 2 years. We'll bring back that 1 year tomorrow. It's right
well,
on your rate
I'm
model.
not seeing it in the rates that you're proposing here.
No.
One, the overall, what the extra cost is going to be. It's easy. It's what's the cost of debt service. Give the percentages on there. It's great having the 5,000 or 6,000 average cost on there, but what the overall rate increase for the system is going to be. How we break it down is another question. But if we need 50 million or 60 million dollars, what's that overall impact? And then come in there and you know, what the rates will be at the end of those years. You know, the conversation we had over smoothing with it, we need to know at the end of that point in time what it takes to operate the system. And you brought up another great point about inflation. So what we're talking about here is static. We know we have inflation coming. Reba, did you do any inflation adjustments in that? Well, good.
They're probably too low now.
Yeah.
But the rate model does include inflation factors.
Because the construction rate increase is 11% so far for '22. That's what your windstorm bills are going to go up by, the Bach Construction Index for Corpus Christi with it. So yes, please give this council a 3-year projection, what this $1.1 billion worth of additional finances, and probably one last go-round with our financial advisor, too. So, and look, that's just mine, 1 out of 9 when I'm saying this, so, thank you.
Ruth, Councilman Pusley has a question. Can we? Oh, he's not on.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Can y'all hear me okay?
Yes, we can. Thank you. Go ahead.
Hello?
Yes, we can hear you. Hold on. Let me tell him. Hang on.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, can you hear us?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, go ahead.
I've been listening to all this discussion, and I'm sure that it's as clear as mud to all of our ratepayers what we're discussing. I'm still sitting here trying to figure out what ratepayers are going to pay for a gallon of water over the next 3 years. So this is very confusing, and I think Peter, we need to do a better job of making a presentation on what our rates are going to be, what we estimate they're going to be, so that the ratepayers understand exactly what's going on. We get criticized all the time, and in the last few days, we've been criticized for going through all these numbers at a high level or in the weeds, whatever you want to call it, and not coming to the people of this community and explaining in clear, understandable terms what's going to be expected of them with respect to tax rates, what our levies are going to be, how much money we're going to spend, what the increase in our spending this year is going to be over last year. Those are the kind of things that people are interested in hearing. And so we get in these long, detailed discussions about it, and maybe they're worthwhile, and I'm not saying that they're not, but we have to, at the end of the day, pare this down to where people can understand it. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. I think, are you done with the presentation, or?
I've got a couple more slides I
Yeah,
can go
go
through
ahead. No,
really quick.
I didn't know. I just didn't know. Go right ahead.
I'm a little hesitant about, but, okay, because I know that it's getting late.
Yeah.
So, next slide, please. And I'll go through these really quick, because these all kind of come together. And this is the wastewater treatment plant. It's just our capital investment, because I know we've been talking a lot about water, but wastewater is equally as important. And all the challenges that we're having in water, in some shape or form, they're not too dissimilar from the challenges we're having in our wastewater operations, just because of everything there is going up, no matter what we're doing in wastewater. And we have 6 plants, not just one, but 6 plants to maintain. And this slide shows what we're proposing to do in the upcoming budget cycle of $39 million. And it lists them out here from Allison, Broadway, Greenwood, Laguna Madre, Whitecap, and Oso. It's critical that we continue to work on these projects to maintain our system. And just to reiterate, in a previous slide, we do discharge close to 30 million gallons a day, every single day, out of our wastewater treatment plants. Our clean water rate right now is 99%, just a little above 99%, which we feel is outstanding. And thanks to our wastewater team, Daniel and his hard work on this, not only are we treating the wastewater, but we're also doing a much, much better job of maintaining our facilities and trying to be a good neighbor there. Okay? And the last slide, I'm going to let Reba explain this one. This is our public agency water rate adjustments.
As per our water supply agreements, and we adjust our public agency rates as through a review every year. And so every year we've brought public agency rate adjustments to the city council. And these include our public agencies, South Texas Water Authority, San Patricio Municipal Water District, Port Aransas, which is the Nueces County Water Control and Improvement District number 4, and the Violet Water Supply Corporation. So we calculate these on an annual basis as per their agreements. And this is basically so that there are true-ups for over or under collection of revenues every year. And just so you know, we've also already sent these to our public agencies in advance, so they're aware of these adjustments. The raw water rate for only our public agencies will be adjusted from 90 cents per 1,000 gallon to $1.03 per 1,000 gallons for effective in January of 2023. The treated water rate for South Texas Water and San Patricio Municipal Water District will be adjusted from $1.21 to $1.28 per 1,000 gallons. And the treated water rate for Port A and Violet will be adjusted from $1.77 down to $1.71. The reason why Port A and Violet's treated water rate went down is that their rate includes the transportation of the water from the water plant to their city limits, or the network cost, and those costs actually went down in fiscal year 23 because of some debt service payments that fell off related to the network, so it decreased accordingly. I stand by for any questions.
Reba, just so the public agency, give us a definition of those or give us examples.
The public agencies are those that have wholesale water contracts with the city of Corpus Christi, so they pass through. And so they receive the water from us, and then they turn around and they sell it to their residents or other customers, and they bill them.
Right, like what's the example? San Pat Water District?
San Patricio Municipal Water District sells water to Portland. They also sell
Right.
water to industry like Gulf Coast Ventures, not Adventures.
That's good. What's another example of a public agency? The South Texas Water Authority?
Oh, the South Texas Water Authority, who supplies water, I believe, to Kingsville.
Okay, so this is not, right, this chart here has nothing to do with the residential ratepayer,
Correct.
right?
Right,
Our
right, right.
residential customers, this is what you do every year?
Right.
Based
This is
on
a
the
rate
lawsuit that
adjustment that they
happened?
expect every year.
Okay.
This, right.
Councilman Smith?
And I think Alice is another one too, right? Or the Alice Water Authority.
Alice
Raw
and
water.
Mathis and Beeville are all composite rate customers, and that's
A different.
a separate process.
And just a detail here, Reba, so in this proposed CIP, we have an improvement to Port Aransas, a line that's directly redundancy in that. Do you aggregate that, or do you separate those individuals? So there's a lot of increase to supply to Padre Island and then directly to Port A, so just...
Those are all part of the network portion of the system.
Is it in aggregate on the network, or do you split it out?
It's in aggregate.
Okay, that's what, thank you.
Okay, that's all. Is that the end of your?
Yes, so, yes, ma'am, that concludes our presentation, and appreciate the
Okay,
feisty give and take on both sides.
okay. All right, great. Thank you very
Okay.
much. Thank you all, Reba. Thank
Thank you very
you.
much.
Okay.
Okay.
Anything else? That's it,
Mayor,
Peter?
that concludes our presentation for today. So tomorrow, it's 9 o'clock tomorrow, just to remind
9
all the
o'clock, and
council
tomorrow
members.
we're doing what tomorrow?
Yeah.
I mean, what is it over?
Tomorrow's 9 o'clock. Okay. The list
that-
tomorrow, if we can, this is important information, if people can just listen for a second.
Hold on, hey, guys,
Yeah.
can we, hold on 1 second. Go
Just
ahead.
want to make sure and Councilman Pusley hopefully is still there. So tomorrow, we start at 9 o'clock, not 10, 9 o'clock.
9 a.m.
And then we're going to cover 7 things: the council office budgets, the city property tax rate, the fees and charges for service outside of the ones we talked about today, economic development department, and then the hotel occupancy tax. We'll talk about that.
Okay.
And then we're going to do a summary of the community input, and then begin to talk about potential adjustments to the budget. So that's all tomorrow.
Okay,
Yep.
okay, all righty. Anybody have any questions, comments? No? Okay,
I have a question.
yes, sir.
Peter,
Yes, sir.
you said at the beginning of the meeting that at next Tuesday's meeting, we will have the first reading to approve the budget for 2023?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And then at the following meeting, we would make the final approval.
Right.
Are we going to be ready by then?
Yes, sir. Yeah, you can make adjustments in the first and the second read, Miles? Right, so the first reading, you don't have to stick with that necessarily for the second reading. So we have 2 weeks. We have Thursday, tomorrow, then we'll do the first reading on Tuesday of next week. We have all of that week. If there's input from the council, we'll post the Friday for the final budget on Tuesday. Amendments can be made on the floor. What's posted Friday doesn't mean that's it. Discussion can be held even on Tuesday, the 6th of September, to wrap up the budget.
What is the deadline for passing the budget?
The deadline that we have, there's one that's imposed by state law, but the one we're working under is one that the tax assessor collector, Kevin Kieschnick, has asked us to adhere to so they can send tax statements out. So I believe it's around that 6th, unless we do a special council meeting.
Yeah, and keep in mind, you have to pass the budget in order to pass the tax rate. So one key's off the other, and
Eddie, do you know the date Kevin Kieschnick gave us? What?
I didn't hear the date.
Okay, around the 10th, Councilman, is what Kevin Kieschnick wants us to turn in the tax rate. So that council meeting that we have on the 6th was the closest one to the 10th.
Well, what if we can't get it done by the 10th?
Then we turn it in late, and he
We're
doesn't
gonna
send
get
out the
it
tax statements till late, but, yeah.
in-
But we have time if council
Yeah.
members want some one-on-one briefings.
Right.
If we have to hold another meeting,
Well,
we
and I
can
would
do that.
suggest that, and Councilman Pusley, we're going to get it done by then. We are. And here's the thing, and I'm going to encourage this again. If we have, you guys have questions in depth, Councilman, if y'all have questions in depth, because we are trying to abide by a deadline, I don't know why you wouldn't reach out and say, Reba, I want to sit down with you, and I need to I do this with Constance all the time, just so y'all know. I do 101s with her all the time. And that does not mean you don't bring forth questions or comments. It just means get your in-depth understanding of whatever it is you don't understand. Because we do, and we will do this by the 10th. We'll have it in. There's no reason we shouldn't. And Councilman Pusley, I know you're not saying that. You're just saying, I want to make sure. So everybody individually needs to go make certain they understand. Whatever it is you're not understanding or may have clarity, bring forth to the meeting what you feel needs to be made, the right comments on. But we cannot dissect line by line. That is not out of our lane. And line by line is operational. Questions and comments and asking direct questions all day. That's your job. But I'm just encouraging what you just said, Peter. Reach out to staff. We have plenty of time to get this passed. What were you going to say?
And Madam Mayor, I
Mayor,
appreciate.
I'm not
I know you-
insinuating that we delay anything, but with all due respect, you have the advantage of you're there at City Hall all the time. That's your full-time job. Not all of us can do that. And so we have to work that in, and many times staff members are not available at the times we're available. But I still have a lot of questions.
Yeah.
And so,
Oh, yeah, I'd advise you to, ask them. And Councilman, I don't get special treatment. And I am in and out of this office and this building. I mean, it is a full-time job, but that's even harder. It's even harder for me to get, just ask Constance. And so but I hear what you're saying, but Peter, everybody needs to be made available, staff does.
Right, Councilman, in fact, we worked on the weekends the last 2 months, so we're available not only Monday through Friday, but the weekends as well.
Oh, I see.
Yes,
Okay.
ma'am. We met with Councilman Smith at his request.
Oh, I didn't know that. Well, that's
Yeah.
even better.
Right.
I might need to be meeting on the weekends then, because Peter and I hardly have time to even meet. It's crazy.
Right. Yeah, so we're accessible, Councilman. Just if you're having trouble with a staff member, let me know. But
Yes.
we need to be working at your behest.
Yes.
Right.
Well, I want to be able to support the budget, but I need my questions answered.
Yeah, no problem. Let me know who you want to, I'll reach out to you after this meeting to get some meetings set up with you.
Well, and then I'd just like to follow up. I found staff very informative, and any questions, like you said, I did reach out with them, so.
Right.
And I appreciate all the effort they put in.
Yeah, I appreciate you saying that,
Good.
Councilman, because
Greg,
we did. I
thank you.
personally met several times with you
Yes.
as well. Yeah, thank you.
Okay. All righty. Any other, go ahead, Councilman Hunter. Just throw it out.
I'll be ready to vote for the rate decrease.
Okay. All right. Okay. There being no further questions that I can see or hear, Councilman Pusley? You good?
I'm good.
All
I'm
right.
good.
Okay. I adjourn this meeting.